Hey guys, this is the Rubin Report. I'm the newly installed Cuban ambassador to the United States, Dave Rubin, and I have two of my favorite guests with me, Cathy Ladman and Andy Riesmeyer. We're not going to cover Cuba because it just happened, and I know everybody likes to pretend that they know exactly everything about everything all the time, but I needed a couple minutes to think about it, and then we'll do something on it next week.
Couple of minutes?
I needed just 5 minutes.
on.
I don't even have 5 minutes this morning to make it happen. So we'll do Cuba next week, which the whole story will change by then, but here we go.
You should buy this new product I have, though, called Pundit in a Box. It's really good.
Literally, that's the direction we're going. It's just going to be
Right, I know.
pundits on the walls in Toys R Us. They would make a lot. We
I'm
just
sorry,
pull.
I didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
you.
please.
It's terrible. It's such a blabby.
We are off to a
Blabby.
terrible start. All right, here we go.
Yes.
So you guys probably heard about this. Jeb Bush has announced, there's Jeb, he has announced that he is going to at least form an exploratory committee to think about the possibility of maybe potentially running for president, which pretty much means he's running for president. Here's the note that Jeb posted on his Facebook page. Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah. Like many of you, our family was blessed with the opportunity to gather together over the recent Thanksgiving holiday. Columba and I are so proud of the wonderful adults our children have become, and we love spending time with our 3 precious grandchildren. We shared good food and watched a whole lot of football. We also talked about the future of our nation. As a result of these conversations and thoughtful consideration of the kind of strong leadership I think America needs, I have decided to actively explore the possibility of running for president of the United States. In January, I plan to establish a leadership PAC that will help me facilitate conversations with citizens across America to discuss the most critical challenges facing our exceptional nation. The PAC's purpose will be to support leaders, ideas, and policies that will expand opportunity and prosperity for all Americans. In the coming months, I hope to visit with many of you and have a conversation about restoring the promise of America. Best wishes to you and your families for a happy holiday season. I'll be in touch soon. Onward, Jeb Bush. I don't know if you know this, but his brother was president, 2-term president. His dad was 1-term president, also the director of the CIA way back when, also a vice president.
Can you get that picture of Jeb? You know, see in that photo, Jeb is actually holding women down. Do you see it? Physically, he's not even trying to hide it.
Yeah, so he's doing some sort of force, like a Jedi thing to push the women down.
Pushing them down from the glass ceiling.
Yeah, so we've talked about this a bunch.
Not in a dirty way, but you could look at it like that. You could look at it like that.
It could be a little dirty. We've talked about the Bushes and the Clintons a lot. I'm not a fan of either of them. We left England because we shouldn't be living under dynasties, and yet these people just keep coming back and coming back. And after we have Jeb, then we'll have Hillary or vice versa. Then we'll have Chelsea. Then we'll have Malia. Then we'll have, who's after Malia? We'll get Sasha.
Oh, that dog.
The dog will probably be president. And this all ends with Jaden Smith becoming our president. It's really just terrible. What do you guys think, just about that concept? Not even about Jeb specifically, but what do you think about just this family
the dynasty thing?
Yeah.
Well, even their moms said, we've had enough Bushes in the White House.
Literally, that's what she said.
It's also dirty, but I can't seem to get away with it. But from it. But yeah, I mean, it really it's so incestuous that. But almost every government politics is an industry.
Yeah.
And like you look at any industry. Your father gets you in, your parents get you in, your uncle gets you in, I have a cousin, come, meet this guy. I mean, that's how things happen.
So it's more human nature, sort of just like helping the people you know and your family.
I think it is. I really do think it is. But we're not talking about him specifically yet.
Well, we'll get to him specifically in a second. So what do you think about the big picture idea of just these families that just, it's more and more and more, regardless of what I think the people really want? Which might be change, dare I say change?
I mean, I think that it's very sad that we've sort of accepted political nepotism as just the way of the world. The status quo is that, like you say, someone comes along who has name recognition, we just think, oh, well, I remember someone like that also had a position of leadership, and therefore the crown should be bestowed upon he or she, as of course with Hillary Clinton. The thing that I really worry about with what this also means is that if these candidates are boring and sort of like has-beens, or I think the toast is done. Did you hear that?
There was a little ding there.
I hope
Somebody's
someone heard it. Someone's
ready.
bagel is done. Someone could get the bagels.
Yeah.
I think that if we continue to hear sort of the same old, especially for the generations that are coming up, who would be interested in the political process. I think it just doesn't do anything to excite anybody because it's sort of old news, and I think that's a really dangerous place to get stuck into when we already have a hard time reaching voters and people, to sort of make it interesting.
But you have to put. I'm sorry, but you have to put some. There's a responsibility on the American public too, because we are star searchers. This is what we do. We like famous people.
Yeah.
We like people that we know. We don't want to know anything new.
And did you see the jawline on Jeb Bush? I mean, that's a movie star right there, right? I mean, come on, look.
Does he have the yeah?
He does.
Now, Mitt had a good jawline.
I was.
Oh, you were that?
Okay.
I was going to say he looks more like a soft potato.
Yeah, yes, sort of like a fingerling.
Yeah,
a fingerling in a suit.
So to that point, so I agree. I agree with both of you. I think it's terrible, and then I also agree that it is. We're star fuckers. We like the name recognition.
Yes.
There's this idea of this dynasty family. You think you can say fuck.
I forgot.
There's you'll get a couple in.
Okay.
But we think of places like the Kennedy compound, and what do the Bushes have in Kennebunkport, or we think of these dynasties. But really, what could be worse for just the narrative of the country and just the discussion and changing things than Hillary versus Jeb? And then we'll get to the specifics of them. But just the idea that nothing, we had like a little 8 years of a different guy, and then, because that's what I think is going to happen here. People are going to go, we had 8 years of the other guy, we didn't really like that. And now we're going to go, oh, we need the old guys again.
Right. I know. Well, it's terrible because we are so afraid. We say we want change, and yet we don't want to venture into the unfamiliar.
Yeah.
But that is indicative, and you can look at almost any area in our society, and it's like that.
Yeah.
Environment, cars, the clothing people wear.
Right.
I mean, everybody. How many people? Even we were looking at this guy on the phone. There's somebody who looks so different. It's like things either are freaky or we want to be part of it. And it's
Cathy's foreshadowing a story we're doing a little bit, by the way. No, that's good. No, we'll annotate back to it.
Yeah.
We can do fancy things here.
I think that what's really amazing about this, I think we're totally missing, is like the unbelievably close parallel to Back to the Future Part 2, where like 30 years in the future, everybody is just played exactly by the same person who they were in the 80s.
Right.
Yeah.
And
yet we have no hoverboard.
We do.
I know.
Oh, now we do.
We do.
We kind of have
it. The joke is dated, Dave. Get some new routine.
We almost have one. Yeah.
And I think it's very sad, like we said before, but also boring.
Yeah.
Let's have something interesting happen, and let's have something that's going to maybe give us a different look into someone who could lead the country.
I really think it would behoove us to all study sociology and see how history really does repeat itself and how the human condition helps to perpetuate it. And in order to get out of this pattern, you got to take risks. And each individual has to start taking risks in the microcosm of his or her life, and then it can radiate out.
Yeah.
But
so why would anyone want to be president? I don't even think we have to get into the specifics of Jeb. I have a feeling you don't like Jeb that much. But why would anyone want to be president? At this point, when we live in this world where all we know about hacking and all your emails can get out and pictured, I feel like if you want that power, at this point, we're like turning a corner here where every disaster is going to be at every turn. Like we're going to go into everybody's going to be getting impeached relentlessly or scandal relentlessly. Like I really think we're turning a corner into like bizarro land. Why would you want? Like this family is so powerful, the Bush family. Like can't they consolidate it another way that we don't need a guy that's going to be president too?
Right.
Or is it just that power? Is that office?
Ego?
It's just ego.
I think absolutely it's ego. But I mean, and the only time I've ever felt this was. And I've been a few times, but most recently with my family, went to the Reagan Library in Simi Valley, and for all that it is, maybe it's a little bit sort of one-sided, certainly, but to go and to sort of experience like what sort of the optimism I think that the projection of the Reagan legacy is, and sort of like the idea that you can sort of really base your presidency on being like a figurehead for positive feelings about the country. I think that is sort of like enticing, if you are looking for like an ego boost.
Right.
But I think that now, that was a different time before we had email and we had Twitter. And it was much, easier, I think, to craft the narrative than it is today.
You're right.
You know?
By the way, Andy, I know that nothing excites the commenters more than a positive reference of Reagan,
yeah.
so it's at Andy Riesmeyer on
That's right.
Twitter, by the way, so you can go to him directly on there. Yeah, I think that, Cathy, wrap us up here.
Well, no, what I was saying is that, I am at heart an idealist, I think, and I like to think that there is someone who wants to do good. But in order to do good within a corrupt system, I honestly don't know how one goes about it.
Yes, I completely agree, and
because in order to get ahead in the political game, you have to play the political game which is inherently corrupt.
Thus, we get the same families over and over, and things don't change that much. All right, let's move on. Speaking of things not changing that much, do you know we're in a war in Iraq? We've been in this war. It kind of ended. Then we started it again. Then we went to Syria. We didn't get congressional authorization for that. Nobody talks about that. I talk about it, but nobody else does. And now, in the city of Erbil, which is about 30 miles away, basically, from where all this crazy ISIS stuff is happening, something really, really bizarre is happening, and we've got a couple images. That looks like the White House, doesn't it?
It does. It looks like the White House in Beverly Hills.
Look at this. It does. That looks like a Beverly Hills.
It's a Persian White House.
They are literally building a replica of the White House. This is one of many, many giant villas that they're building. This is literally 30 miles from the worst of the war zone that's going on over there. But there's a lot of money happening.
Why are they doing that?
So money brings war. Throw a couple of the images back up real quick. So I can give you some more info. So many of the villas are gated and walled, of course, and they're valued at over $600 grand. The replica of the White House is worth $16.5 million.
Is this to sell?
So they're going to sell this. They're calling it the Dream City, and it's got Dubai-based investors.
Okay, right.
Looks lovely.
It's so hideous. If you pulled that and planted it in Beverly Hills, the community would rise up and it would be raised within a week.
Well, they would probably give you some better landscaping in Beverly Hills. But the reason I want to do this story is I just think this is kind of interesting. Like, we see all this horrific stuff happening there. There's no doubt that there's obviously awful stuff. Iraq basically isn't even a state anymore.
Right.
And yet, somehow, 30 miles from the epicenter of all this, there's
major
money being...
It's a development.
So, yeah, it's literally, it's like an old age development.
I want to know how the schools are there. Are they good schools?
Yeah, I'm sure they have good private schools in the walled
They're really upset about the subway that they're going to be putting underneath the...
man.
Because then you bring in the people
the people from ISIS.
Yeah. What do you make of something like this?
How many Dwayne Reeds are going to open there?
Somebody who builds a mansion 30 miles away from the front lines of ISIS is probably not very concerned with ISIS, which I think is probably the most problematic thing about that.
Because they're in cahoots with ISIS?
I don't know. I mean, you got to wonder, will we be offended if someone blows this up, sort of as a display, an effigy? Also,
right.
I mean,
aren't they basically begging for that thing to be blown up?
It's like us playing them.
It's taunting. I think it's a bit of taunting.
Yeah.
Is it sort of like, look, we can do this as well, Or maybe they're just really big fans of Jeff Goldblum and Independence Day.
They're doing they are making Independence Day.
This is actually a set piece.
I never saw Independence
the second
Day.
one.
You never saw Independence Day.
It looks so stupid to me.
Are you guys? So when I saw this,
Sorry, guys.
It's pretty stupid.
Sorry, you're idiots.
Sorry, Jeff Goldblum.
It's pretty stupid. Wow.
I'm sorry.
You're so mean to him.
Wow.
I'm sorry.
On his way.
Even though I was
laughed
surprised,
so loudly in my microphone. I'm so sorry to the person on this.
You've apologized like 8 times. We're only 2 segments in.
That's my hook.
That's your
my
new
hook.
thing.
I'm Cathy, the apologizing comic.
Does anything about Iraq or any of this stuff surprise you guys anymore? You know what I mean? The war wrapped up, then it started again, then it crossed borders. Then nobody talked about ISIS. If you looked at a year ago now and you look at every CNN piece, nobody had ever even heard of ISIS. So does anything, so when you see a replica White House going up, even though I was surprised for 10 seconds, then I was like, at this point.
None of this shit surprises me. I mean, I know we're not talking about this today. It's not on the roster, but with those school kids killed in Pakistan, I mean, what kind of a mind decides that this is a viable action to take.
Yeah.
None of this shit surprises me, and it's horrifying. I know that building these homes is not horrifying in that same way, but it's as illogical.
No, but right, that's what I mean. So obviously there's no comparison to 140 kids being killed in Pakistan to this. But that's what I mean. Like, there's so much going on at once.
It's like I can't even wrap my brain around this.
Yeah, how do you try to wrap your brain around this stuff?
Like a lot of alcohol, generally speaking, you know? I mean, honestly, I think the best thing that you could ever do is to turn off the news and just not pay attention for a while. Because if you do, I think like probably like we are, news junkies, you know, if you're in it all the time, it is just constant depression.
But why is it, I know, but I understand that, but why is it better to like not know?
I don't know that it's necessarily better to not know from a like humanitarian standpoint, but just from like a personal like mental stability standpoint.
To save yourself.
Well, if you want the answer to Andy's point, I did a very deep philosophical piece on this that we just recorded yesterday with Kelly Carlin about how you deal with the news and how it affects your spirit and how much you should put into it. So we'll annotate to that, and you can check that out. And let's move on. You're not going to believe this, guys, but men are complete idiots. That's right, science has finally proven it. There is a study from the British Medical Journal that outlines what they're calling the male idiot theory, or MIT, not school, the male idiot theory. And it basically says that men are idiots, and idiots do stupid things. We've got some more info for you. Authors examined the recorded facts of about 300 people who have been given the Darwin Award over the last 20 years. The Darwin Award is a posthumous honor given to people who have died through instances of stupidity. More than 88% of Darwin Award winners were male. I'm shocked. The theory is that males engage in far more risk-taking behavior, while for females, the prerogative is geared more towards keeping oneself alive to ensure the survival of their offspring. So I think a lot of that's kind of just genetic and sort of hunter-gatherer versus the woman taking care of the home kind of stuff. But now that scientists have jumped in on this, as the female on the panel here, would you agree that men are idiots?
What can I say? Yeah. I mean, come on. I had to bring this because I knew we were talking about this. This is one of my favorite. It's two cave women walking along, and one says to the other, they're all Neanderthals.
There you go. So, yeah. I mean, men are idiots, right?
Well,
like, we do stupid things that women don't do. When I was reading that, it was just making me think of like every idiotic thing that I ever did in college.
Oh my God, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
in college, you stopped after you got out of college?
Most of my like sheerly idiotic things, like, you know, drinking from a funnel that was on a roof that they had like a 20-foot thing come down, and then ride a bike while I was drunk. Or
I mean, not that there aren't women who do
but
this.
Yeah.
But I think the percentages show that mostly men don't think ahead.
Okay.
You know, right?
Eddie.
I mean, I think a study sample that uses 300 of like the dumbest people in history is like
How do you
a
know
little
that?
bit flawed. Well, I mean, they've died because they were stupid. And I guess that, you know, it's only 300 people. This is sort of like self-selected.
Right.
It could also be that the way that stupid women died just wasn't as interesting or wasn't as funny, because like I think there is sort of something within the male. I don't know if it's like barbaric mentality to sort of like show off how
hunter-gatherer
stupid
kind of
that
stuff?
we are. I mean, absolutely that. But I think also, you know, it's like the study said we, as men, are more likely to take risks. We drive fast. We commit more crimes. We take more drugs. We skydive more. I mean, there's just things that are more about like showing off necessarily.
Right.
And I think that in a lot of scenarios like that where risk is involved, like you're going to put yourself in a situation where clearly.
But you're supporting the argument.
All right. So in that case, I guess I'll have to agree with it.
But that was a pretty, even though you argued both points, that was a pretty salient argument for a man.
Yeah, thank you. I know, it's amazing that I wasn't like, you know, off doing something stupid, you know, while
you're like stabbing yourself while you were doing that. But I mean, you know, the way it's couched, men are idiots, is, you know, I mean, that's stupid. But I mean, but I do think that men are not, in general, are not as careful about this.
Right. Now, I wonder if we were to look, again, this is obviously a small reported sample.
And they're horrible communicators.
Well, we know that much.
Horrible.
For sure.
I think judging by this panel alone, like, that's pretty clear.
Men are terrible.
No, get out of here. No, not at all. I'm not saying you guys, but I'm actually just talking about
your husband.
My
is that
husband.
where this is going? Yeah, I mean, that was the subtext to all this. I was waiting for you to say it.
And my father.
I didn't want to.
And all of my previous boyfriends.
All men are just terrible. How much of this do you think also has to do with age? Because I think there is some age factor here. I was actually just saying right before the show today to our director that women in their 20s seem way more mature than men. Like women start getting
I
their...
don't know.
You don't think so?
Maybe women.
I don't know.
Maybe women are just too smart. Did we ever think of it that way?
Well, what's that plan? The men are
Too
from
smart?
Mars and women are from Venus, so
Just
maybe the
saying.
schools
You
are
mean
better
too
at Venus.
smart? You
For
mean
the
it's-
baseline of society.
You mean women are
just too
they're
intelligent.
fucking up
Well,
by
that's the
being
thing.
too
It's like
smart?
men wouldn't be so stupid if women were not as smart.
Oh, so we have to bring it down a notch.
I have to spin
I
this in
see.
any way that I can
We've got
possibly
to level
go.
the playing field. Okay.
Well, I'm not sure if we proved that men are not as smart or are idiots or what we proved here, but I'm curious to know your thoughts, so let us know in the comment section right down below. A digital technology professor at the Ontario Institute of Technology has written an interesting piece on the elf on the shelf. Do you know about the elf on the shelf? If not, let's take a look.
The elf on the shelf, where can you be? I pop out of bed each morning to see you watch as I try to do as I should. At night you tell Santa the news is all good.
Okay, so the elf on the shelf basically sits on the shelf and is watching the kids so that he can report back to Santa whether the kids have been naughty or nice. Well, Laura Pinto, who is this professor, she wrote a piece on this, basically saying that that we're training kids to be accustomed to a surveillance state. So let's take a look at a little bit of what she wrote. She wrote, "You're teaching kids a bigger lesson, which is that it's okay for other people to spy on you and you're not entitled to privacy. The elf is an external form of non-familial surveillance. If you grow up thinking that it's cool for the elves to watch me and report back to Santa, well, then it's cool for the NSA to watch me and report back to the government." I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I sort of agree with her sentiment. We talk so much about the NSA and the CIA and spying and hacking and blah, blah, blah. Are we conditioning these kids? I have a feeling Andy doesn't quite agree. So Andy, you're not with me on
No,
this?
I'm with you. I just think the real thing that conditions kids to living in a surveillance state is living in a surveillance state. You know, I mean, it's not like this fucking elf that's like sitting on the shelf. I mean, there's a lot bigger issues like, I don't know, going to school and like being, you know, like I was in a place with like 300 cameras all over, you know, all the time, watching you to make sure that the overlords.
Where did you go to school?
North Central High School in Indianapolis, Indiana.
Why were there so many
West
cameras?
86th Street.
Yeah, why were there so
absolutely.
many cameras?
Well, kids are horrible. I mean, and
Yes, well, that,
I can
yes.
attest to it. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
thank God we had surveillance because, like, I'm
Are
not
you saying
gonna,
you were on the bullying end of things? I think that's
Oh
what
no,
you're
I'm
saying.
on the I was on the
Yes.
opposite side.
You
I'm
were
just
the-
gonna
you were
say,
the bully?
like, I will say that the
No.
McMillan
He wasn't the bully.
family cat may or may not have been shot with what may or may not have been a BB gun by someone who I may or may not have known, who may or may not have lived next to what probably would have been my high school. And
I'm pretty sure whatever you're saying,
Wow.
that cat, that's probably still within the statute of limitations if you killed the cat.
I didn't, though. It wasn't me.
But a guy.
Someone who was then caught
knows-
later
he
by
knows
the
who.
cameras. The thing is, it's like I think somewhere in that long-winded attempt at humor.
Yeah.
Well, you were on the witness stand.
Right. Exactly.
Understood, yes.
You know, I think that we are conditioned because of the fact that we are just surrounded by cameras and surveillance all the time.
Okay, so the bigger point is that these cameras are everywhere. Actually, when I was driving here today, I drove by a Google car with the big camera out there. I mean, right down on La Cienega, they're filming everybody, or they're taking pictures for
I
maps
know.
or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But the idea that this is in the house, this concept, I get it. It's just an idea, and I know this is just a paper, and it's sort of a law. It's a philosophical
Right.
debate. They're not actually putting cameras to watch and record these kids. And
No,
whatever.
but see, to me, the greater problem with this is that this is how you're motivating kids to be good people because someone is watching you.
Right.
And then you get a reward because this thing that's watching you reports to this fucking
Yeah.
fake guy. You know, I mean,
Whoa.
it's just what?
What?
Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Kathy-
Are there any Santa believers?
Oh God.
We have a lot of
watching this?
7-year-old kids
I'm
that watch
sorry.
that are on the fence
Oh,
about the
Billy,
Santa thing.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
But you know, I find that more disturbing than anything. And then basically that is what is what drives society. Be good people because we're watching you.
Right. So I think
Not
actually.
be good people because it's good to be a good person.
Right, but be it because we're watching you, not because it's inherently or intrinsically good. So actually, it sort of seems to me that we're all kind of in agreement here, because there's the real surveillance stuff that's going on, and the idea, but those two things go hand in hand.
Yeah, but I don't know that, like, I mean, I think it's a tough line to cross there. I mean, I think this is just sort of a creepier thing, so it's easier for us to point it and say, like, this is freaky.
Yeah.
But I think
the
that,
elves
like,
are a little freaky.
yeah,
it is
just
creepy.
like that little guy,
And the way
like,
he's looking,
staring,
he's
and he
holding his
sits,
knees.
Yeah, that guy is a perv.
I'm judging.
He's a perv.
He's judging.
Yeah, he's
judging
very
the elf.
perv.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, like, I don't know. I think that we do need a little bit of authority.
Watching
for sure.
them change into their pajamas. It's creepy.
I mean, that's, it's
it's
like,
weird.
and what is that?
It's a little creepy.
It's like voyeuristic in a lot of ways.
I bet you, I mean, joking aside, like, I bet there are kids that literally turn the elf around when they're changing or something. You know what I mean? Like, you create this
he's
weird...
going to be arrested, and his arms will be clasped behind his back
it's
and
fucked
as a
up.
pedophile.
All right, so final thought on this. Do you think so between the real stuff, so the real cameras that are everywhere in the NSA and that stuff, which we all agree on, and then the idea of this stuff, do you think kids that are growing up now with all this, do you think they'll ever revolt against it? Like, I think I'm part of that last generation that had it the other way. You know what I mean? If you're somewhere in your 30s, maybe upper 20s, you didn't fully grow up with all this, but they really are growing up with all this. Do you think they will ever...
I think so. I think revolt ultimately always happens. That's what happens. You build up to a boiling point, there's a revolution, and there's change, and then you start building up again to another boiling point. That seems to be the way history goes.
But it's like, will we be too just much enthralled in our Facebook scroll to like, be
even
able
know.
to
you
even pay attention?
you think we're on our way to another paradigm of humanity?
It's like,
I think we might be. I think of that ebb and flow thing, and that there are cyclical things.
Yes,
yeah. But then on the other hand, I do think that the technology is becoming so powerful that it's actually changing the way we are.
Like we're just going to be little microbes.
We're little microbes in a big matrixy thing. What do you think? Comment right down below. Did you guys know that there's porn on the computer there? Yeah, there is porn online. I know you're going to have to pause this and find it for the very first time. But yeah, on this little screen that you're looking at me right now, there is porn. You probably have it open in another tab. We know what you're doing. Don't think we don't, as Cathy goes to her phone and sees what's what, and Andy's joining her. Anyway, so Pornhub came out with a map explaining where people are watching porn on their desktops, where they're doing it on their mobile devices, and where they're doing it on their consoles. That's, I guess, their Xboxes and PlayStations, probably. My 8-bit Nintendo in 1985 did not have porn. I will tell you that much. But we did have to blow in it to get the games to work. Anywho,
All right, there you go.
Let's
There's
take a
your
look
porn.
at yeah, exactly. Let's take a look at the desktop version. This is where people are looking at porn on their desktop. So the more purple-pink it is, that means they're going desktop, and the more light blue it is, that means that they're not watching it that much on the desktop. So basically, Maine.
So the more blood going to the area.
Yeah, yeah. There's a good, there's a perfect analogy. So Maine people are watching it on the desktop. Let's look at the mobile map real quick. So mobily, people down south, they like having their porn on the go.
Right.
That
Because
seems to be
the only computers that they can afford to use in the South are at libraries.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess you're right.
Very
Yeah,
bizarre.
there
And
you
now
go.
let's look at the people that are watching porn on their video game system.
In Montana.
Montana.
And North and South Dakota.
Yeah.
I will say, Indiana, which you all know I've talked about many times, this is where I'm from originally.
Yes, please explain the...
Indiana's in the middle for both desktop and mobile and tablet, which I feel like is very appropriate.
You guys are just very
We're very
bland.
average.
Yeah.
However, on console, there might be more people, maybe other than Montana, watching porn on their Xbox or PlayStation than in any other state than Indiana, which I think is a strange but sort of proud moment for me. So I'm really happy to share that with you guys.
Congratulations. They should have another map of 3 people watching it at the Pussycat Theater.
Do those theaters exist? There's one
The one in
theater.
West Hollywood.
There is one in West
Yeah.
Hollywood.
Dudes only, though.
Yeah, and I drive by it all the time, and I'm always like, who actually is going to this place?
Is it still called the Pussycat?
It's probably not
is
in
it
West
the one-
Hollywood.
No,
I
it
doubt
wouldn't
it's called the
be.
Pussycat.
Because it
It's
used to
called-
be, they used
No,
to be
it's
the
called
Pussycat.
it's called the Studs Theater.
Is it?
In West Hollywood?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
my God.
But really, I always think like, who's going there, because we all have access to this stuff all the time. So without getting into your personal porn
Yes.
habits, I'll let that slide.
This isn't
That's
the point.
that's another
That's a different-
that's
that's
another show on the
Casper.
network. There's something. really, like all of the porn that I've probably ever consumed, 99% of it has been at a desktop or a laptop. I have a laptop, so that would be the equivalent of but so all these people that are doing it mobily, what's the deal? Like, what are they doing? Are they going to a field with their phone?
They're probably sitting. So I don't think they're walking down the street watching it. Or
I mean, some of them probably are.
or driving.
Absolutely.
I mean,
No, but really, if you're watching it on a mobile device, like, why wouldn't you watch it on your?
because you're not at
For your
home.
big screen?
So you're not. So you're just out and about.
What if you're shopping?
You're at a hotel.
And you need porn.
You're shopping.
You're
in
shopping.
the-
You need porn. You go sit down in a cafe and.
Yeah.
I can't even
continue.
believe there's a place called Pornhub. I mean, that to me, I can't even get over.
thing.
So
Really, give me
sad.
something. Explain these mobile porn people to me.
I have no, I mean, I don't know. I mean, apparently a lot of people are doing it. Maybe it's like the convenience factor, and it's like, oh God, I gotta walk all the way over to the other side of the room to log onto the computer. Got my phone already.
Right.
What I think it really
I'm
strikes
ready to
me the
jerk
most
off
is like,
now.
I want to jerk off now. I don't have time.
it's my porn and I need it now.
Yeah.
It makes me so disgusted when I think about like other people's phones now.
That's
OPP,
funny.
you know?
Right, you're
It's
touching
like,
people's phones.
like with the hygiene already, you know,
First of all,
is
how
really
do they
bad on
how do
it.
they do these how do they do these surveys?
Well, because I think they can see it. I mean, it's not self-reporting.
Oh, so
they literally.
we're back to
They
the
know.
NSA.
We're back to the NS. Well, we're back to
There's
the
the elf
internal-
on the shelf. I see you watching your porn.
Yeah, there's another story we just covered. We'll annotate to that one. Is there something good actually about all this that we can talk about this stuff and it's so normalized now? Like, I remember when I was a kid, like, I remember finding a stack of porn magazines like a block away by the mailbox. And it was like, that was my first access to porn. I was probably 10 or something.
It was
I don't know.
a block away
but
by the like
somebody
just
no,
sitting
somebody like
next to a tree or something.
Well, you know how they say when people are about to kill themselves, they give away all their stuff. So I feel like it was a guy that was
What?
about to kill himself, and he wanted to get rid of all his porn.
So
and
you
just
took
left
the
it for
dead-
the next
suicide
the next
porn.
generation. I don't know. I'm making that part up, but maybe he
Well-
left it. But my point is that there was such a stigma to porn, and now we can all talk about it
Yes,
openly.
it
and
was-
no
it
one,
was a great-
Everyone knows it's out there, and
I, first of all, not into porn at all.
Okay.
Not one bit. Doesn't do a thing for me. Slightly disgusts me. But I remember when I was about 10, I went up to my father had a stack of Playboy magazines high up in the closet. And I went up there, and we had some friends over, family friends over, and the grown-ups were in the other room. And my friends and I found these classic Playboys, Carol Baker, Marilyn Monroe, etc., Jane Mansfield,
Yeah.
and we're flipping through it, and my father came in, and we were so busted. But that was the height of it then.
Yeah.
That was we're talking about the 1960s. That was the height of it then.
Right, so that's what I
Playboy
mean, like-
magazine, women like lounging on red satin.
Right.
Like that,
right,
you
and
know.
it's a little more graphic now.
Just like
I know
a
you're not
bit.
big into the porn,
no,
but it's a
I know.
lot more graphic.
I've seen some of it.
Yeah, but isn't that like, so to me that seems like a net good that because people always liked porn, people are always watching porn, but it was never talked about. Now it's sort of like everyone knows it's out there. It's sort of
Right.
like we've removed some of the stigma of something that's totally natural, watching people fuck.
So I'm 26,
Yeah.
I think, last time.
We'll go with that. We're not fact-checking.
And so I kind of grew up in the era of the internet porn was always around.
Right.
So I don't really know that I can have it to compare it to anything else, but I know as a kid or as a younger person, like, it was definitely terrifying to think like, oh my God, like, is somebody gonna catch me? You know, so I think
that
the
concept-
taboo thing is still there when you're younger, and maybe we've accelerated it because first of all, there's just way more graphic, like,
Oh
in
my
a lot of times,
God,
like
yeah.
horrific shit.
Right.
And I think that what I know that is done is like that skewed people's sort of expectations for like what sex is and like what
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
should be.
And
That's
you
a
know
whole
what?
other.
Which is a whole
That's a
other
whole
thing.
other
I don't
story.
even
Yeah.
find it erotic. I mean, I like watching a show like The Affair. That does it for me.
Right.
You know?
Such a
I don't know if you're the,
Yeah.
the
And
primary
like you say it
audience
like that's
that
a
they're
bad
going
thing.
for.
No, that's
Such a
great.
chick.
That's great.
I'm a chick.
All right. You know what? You know what I always say about porn? To each his whole.
Such a chick. To each his whole? Did you say that?
You got it.
I
Somebody
heard.
finally got the joke. A new study has come out confirming what I certainly know, which is that having a pet can actually make you healthier. We've got some info for you. This is from the Washington Post. The Human Animal Bond Research Initiative Foundation, that is a lot of words, they recently found evidence that human-animal interactions could lift mood, reduce stress and anxiety, perhaps by activating the hormone oxytocin. Now, as a dog lover, I've talked about it a lot. My dog has brought a tremendous amount of joy to my life. I see this all the time with people that love animals and adopt animals. And I am not surprised by any of this. So sometimes it's nice when science confirms some shit that you know.
I thought that
just
was.
inherit-
I thought that had been confirmed, but
They're double confirming.
But regardless, they're just going back. They're updating their confirmation.
Well,
but
they need something to do.
my dog saved my life all day, every day. I mean, literally, they saved my life.
Just in keeping
Just
your spirits
keeping
up
my
and being
spirits
around.
up, giving me the love that no other creature gives me, accepting the love in a way that no other creature accepts it.
It's just that unconditional.
Yeah, it is just the best part of my day. I mean, I just love it, and I think it's terrible for my daughter and my husband to hear. But
Right.
there's no strife. If my dog is looking at me and thinking I'm an asshole, he doesn't say it, so I can't.
Right.
There's no conflict.
Yeah, well, I always think it's funny when people talk about like having kids, and they're always like, well, it's a lot of work, and your life changes,
Right.
and not to say it's not rewarding, but there's always
Right.
that. They always start with
Yes.
that, you know.
Yes.
But when someone has a dog, or you meet someone with oh my God, this is the best
Yeah.
time.
Oh,
This
yeah.
dog
Joy.
changed my. I love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it.
Joy.
Now, correct me if I'm
Yeah.
wrong. I think you might be a cat guy.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You have
Are you?
cats.
No.
You sick, twisted bastard.
I think a long time ago I made a comment about like setting a cat on fire, and that's like the #1 thing that I still get like hate about on Twitter.
my God.
So you don't have cats.
I never actually set a cat on fire for the record, and I would have never done that. I don't hate cats. It's just funny to hate cats, so like I go for that.
So you don't have a cat.
I don't have
completely
cats.
made- I don't know
like
why.
cats
Do
at
you have
all. I'm not a
dogs?
cat person at all. My God, I love dogs. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Do you have a
I just
dog?
told a story about shooting a cat with a BB gun earlier.
Oh, that was earlier
Come
too.
on.
We'll have to date back to that.
Yeah, you have to. I have
okay.
dogs and I love dogs, and it totally makes perfect sense. And I think any place where you have a work situation where you can bring in your dog, I think it just increases overall productivity. Of course, that's not scientific that I know of.
I bet you there's
maybe
some
it
science
does,
behind
but
that, yeah.
but I just think that it's such a nice addition to the daily
Oh my God! I wish I had
existence.
my phone with me. I would show you my little boys. I
Yeah.
love them so.
All right, so we're all agreed on the dog thing, but now
Yes.
let's talk about cats for a
Snakes.
second, because every time
Talk
I
about
do, let's talk
snakes.
about
Yes.
snakes, because
Yes.
they give you the
I
love and they'll
my
eat all your
snakes.
mice.
You have
My
snakes?
snakes.
No, but really, let's talk about cats for a second,
Okay.
because I don't like cats. I'm allergic to cats. I've had family members with cats that have tried to attack me. My dog and a cat got into a big fight once, and my
Yeah.
dog left bleeding. So I don't like cats, but I know people love cats.
Right.
So I don't want to just attack the
Yeah.
cat community,
No.
even though they're all nuts. We all know that, right?
Yeah,
the cat people
the
are
entirety
bonkers.
of the internet
I know
is run by the
comment
cat.
section. I know. It's
No,
gonna
I know.
happen.
Look, I know people that I love and respect who have these sweet cats, and I'm just not attracted to them. That's
Yeah.
the big problem I have with cats is that they'll be really nice and doing it, and then they pounce.
Right.
Yeah.
There's like no reason, like you there's no trust
Right.
there. And
So the
that I have
cat
a very
people, the
hard
cat
time
people
with that.
always say, "Well, it's you dog people." There's a you dog people. It's because you're so needy and
Yes.
you need that affection constantly. I'm a cat person. I'm self-aware, and I just want an animal that stares and judges me all the time. I guess it's something like that.
I don't-
Although they've also proven that cat feces like releases some toxin that makes people crazy,
Right.
which explains the
Oh,
crazy
it
cat woman
stinks.
Yes.
Cat
on The
houses
Simpsons.
stink.
Yeah.
I was trying to be nice to the cat people, but
It's
wrap
okay.
us up, would you?
I mean, I think you've pretty much said it all. Cat people are weird, and I'll give it.
But
I'll
I
give
know
them that.
somebody who has like 16 cats. She loves them.
Yeah.
Oh, certainly.
She doesn't get out
loves
much,
them.
does she?
No, she does. She gets out a lot, but she also has 2 dogs.
Two
So,
dogs, those
yeah.
poor dogs. Anyway, cat people, I'm trying here. Tell us why you love cats. I want to know. And dog people, I know why you love your dogs. But feel free to comment right down below. According to the Washington Post, Americans are not getting enough sleep, and it is literally killing us. Let's take a look. So this is what people are doing instead of getting enough sleep. This is for sleepers that get less than 6 hours per night. Now, I always heard that you're supposed to get 8 hours. I try to get somewhere around 8 hours. Normal sleepers
Wow.
get 6 to 11, but this is people that get less than 6. They're working. That certainly doesn't surprise, right? I mean, they're commuting, they're socializing, tossing and turning. I mean, a lot of
That's
people
always
definitely have
good.
that, but that's why everyone.
Always save time for that.
But but that's why everyone's on Ambien these days. They're grooming, health-related things, relaxing, playing games, watching TV. So not all these things are stress-related, but your body does actually go through processes when you're sleeping that it needs to get ready for the next day, and sleep is important. Do you feel you get enough sleep?
Absolutely not.
Oh
No.
God! Last night I had such a bad day yesterday, like one of the worst days from morning till night. I actually went to bed at 10:30, which is I can't even remember when I've gone to bed that early. But normally I get maybe 6.5 hours, and it's nowhere near enough. And I walk around exhausted.
Yeah. Are you
And it's
tired right
horrible.
now? You
I'm
seem very
not.
alert and aware.
I'm not. I feel really.
Are you highly caffeinated?
Not at all.
Really?
It's the other
I had
drugs.
1 cup of coffee. Do I seem highly caffeinated?
No, but if you're not getting enough sleep, you're
no,
totally
but I had
alert.
a good night's sleep last night. But I know that one night doesn't make a difference.
No,
but
you actually get a sleep deficit.
Yeah, I
proven that.
definitely need a lot more sleep, and I don't get deep enough sleep, and it's debilitating and it's depressing.
Yeah.
You know, it really is.
Debilitating and depressing. Talk to me, Andy.
Yeah, you know, I think an interesting thing about this chart is that like the people were only working instead of sleeping because that's the only thing that no one else is making you do out of all those other things.
Right.
And I mean, you know, you can turn down, you know, socializing or playing games or commuting, I guess. Well, maybe not commuting, but like you can't really with working.
Yeah.
But I think like I just wrapped a show or just wrapped production on a show called America Cooks with Chefs. You should check it out on Aura TV.
Good plug. Good plug.
And like last night, you know, we're airing episodes right now. So last night, of course, we were in edit until 2 in the morning, and then driving home and then coming back for this. You know, and it's like I think. Especially in an era now where like we're so interconnected and we're expected to be available all the time, 24/7. It's very hard to like stop working and to stop doing things that you would normally not do instead of sleeping.
Yeah. So all right. So I want to get to that. So I'll skip ahead a little bit. So that thing that we never stop.
Right.
How do you manage that in your own? I've been asking every guest this
Very
now for
hard.
weeks because I think everybody's struggling with this thing. You know, I realized for a while that I was starting in the morning at my phone before I got out of bed, and then I was looking at it before I went to sleep. And then you're just putting yourself in this world constantly. So I've actually stopped doing that.
That's
But how
good.
do you manage that? Because it is work. Even though it's not work technically often if you're just on social media, it's still just this endless thing.
It's always been a big challenge for me, and I come from a family like that. My sister and I always talk about it. It's like we're physics experiments, and if there's space, it fills it.
Yeah.
And it's like it's so hard for me. I actually sometimes have to block out time to not do anything.
Yeah.
And it's very hard for me to say no. We live in a very competitive society. And if I don't keep doing and throwing more shit against the wall, and it's a fallacy. It's a bad philosophy.
Yeah, and
Because
sleep then gets lost.
All I'm doing is depleting.
Yeah.
I'm not nourishing.
I hope you're at least on a multivitamin.
I'm on.
You're on a multivitamin.
I'm
Okay.
on.
My last thought on this: do you think Americans need a siesta? You know, many Western European nations have a siesta. I'll do it every now and again, like on a random weekday, like at like 4 o'clock. I just like literally, I'll take like even if it's a 15-minute power nap, and then I feel great for the rest of the day. Now, it's against everything that consumerism and capitalism really seems to be about. Like, we can't stop. I don't believe the government should force people to do it, but do Americans need that concept, at least that idea, that you can shut down for a little bit in the day?
Well, I would, if we were working in factories like I think we were 100 years ago, primarily speaking, like I think it would be a different conversation. But I think a lot of studies have come out recently that said, people don't really even function that well more than 4 or 5 hours at a time, doing one specific task.
Right.
So, maybe we need to change that. Maybe people would be more productive if they felt like they didn't have to always be just sitting at a desk waiting for the day to run out.
It's interesting, even the way you answer that, though. That people would be more productive, like that's
right. That even goes to
it's
the.
like why can't people have a better quality of life?
No, and I think that it would lead to that, though. I think you could have a better quality of life, and
I
then
didn't
as
mean
a
to be
business
attacking.
owner.
It's just
what
like
is this play?
I'm sorry.
What is going on?
But no, I'm just.
No, and I know what you mean,
making
and let me clarify that then by saying that I think that if you're a business owner and you say like I want people to be productive, but if I give them a better quality of life by not expecting them to just sit at a desk and run out a clock, maybe in turn that actually would be better for everybody involved, and like you'd have more happy employees, and your business would be more.
Yeah,
well, you know what? We
be.
can end this with a bit of good news, particularly for you, because we did a story a couple months ago that your employer, Carlos Slim, who I think is the second richest man in the entire world, and who owns Aura TV that Andy works at, he was advocating for a really short work week.
Yeah.
He wants to cut the days and cut the hours.
That's because he doesn't want to pay us.
Oh, that's what he doesn't want to pay you. There
You don't get to be the second richest guy in the world by paying overtime. I'll tell you that much.
Touche.
No, he's great. He's wonderful. I don't mean any of that.
If you don't think we get enough lists during the year in this BuzzFeed world that we live in, well, the year's about to end, and that's where we really double down on the lists. So we've got a list of the most Googled terms in 2014. All right, so we're gonna hit a couple of these. So Robin Williams was the most Googled term in 2014. So what surprised me about that, just real quick, is that that was just an instance that happened. It happened one day, obviously, and then it was a burst for a week.
It was a shock.
But it wasn't something that was going on all year. So I thought that even though it was shocking, of course, that the net sort of usage of that term I'm surprised that it was the #1 thing. World Cup #2, that was obviously huge for the 2 months or so that it was going on. Ebola, the Malaysia Airlines, I want to talk a bit more about that. The ALS Ice Bucket Challenge, Flappy Bird.
I don't even know what
Flappy Bird is an
is.
app. I didn't even download it. I fought the power. I'd never have played Flappy
Never heard
Bird.
of it. I fought harder than you did.
Conchita Wurst, which we did a little research on. We'll tell you about that in a second. ISIS, obviously, is no surprise. Frozen was one of the big movies of the year. And the Sochi Olympics. So these were the top 10 most searched terms on
I have to apologize
Google.
again.
Yeah.
I keep clearing my throat because I have such bad post-nasal drip, so I'm really sorry.
That was actually, number 11 was post-nasal drip. Cathy Ladman.
Number 11!
You know when you put Cathy Ladman into Google,
What do you get?
it goes post-nasal drip.
Autocomplete.
It
I
comes up
can't
that
help
way.
it. I can't solve it.
So is there anything on that list,
an
Andy,
old
that
Jew.
surprised you in any way? It basically sort of shook out somewhat.
Yeah, Robin
What do you think,
Williams
right?
as the #1 term is surprising, absolutely, and sad.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that if you do look at all of the things that are sort of in the top 10 list, it is a really good snapshot of sort of what we thought about and what we were really conceived. That's not the right word.
We were post-conceived.
We were preoccupied with
Yeah.
during the year last year. I'm curious though to think about what your guys' top Google searches was. For me, it was of course Andy Riesmeyer because
What's
how
people
many-
saying about me today?
Well, the thing is, like, how many
Yeah.
times would you repeat Google anything other than yourself?
Right. So
know?
I don't know how. Usually my Googling involves my partner, my fiance now I could say.
Yes.
He cooks a lot, so a lot of times he yells things out of the kitchen,
Yes.
a measurement thing. So I
Right.
Google measurements a lot.
Right.
That's my
Okay.
right. Or
Google-
just not little factoids.
Yeah, I don't think I Google constantly, and I
Yeah.
love it, and I can't believe that it hasn't been around my whole life. But I don't think there's anything that I Google predominantly.
Do you guys think that there's less stuff in your brains now because of this? Like you don't have to store.
You don't have to.
You don't have to keep information. I remember when I was a kid, like playing Trivial Pursuit with my family, and my uncles, especially my uncle and my dad, were so amazing at remember every little fact about World War II and the date that this happened and that happened. And I feel like nobody of the next generation, probably starting with Gen X, don't remember things in that way because we can just go to the
Well,
computer.
but see, back to my head, back to me being like a physics experiment that
Yeah.
we mentioned last time. But the things that I don't need to keep in my brain,
you get rid of.
I get rid of. Phone numbers, don't remember those much anymore.
Yeah.
But it gets filled with other stuff. My friend used to have a theory that your brain is like a bucket, and you can only fit as much into it as you can.
Yeah.
And if you leave room in the bucket, then more stuff will come into it. So I don't remember certain things that are so easily accessible now.
Yeah. I have a good friend who's a actuary, which is the most exciting of
Yeah.
all
Wow.
occupations.
That's so
and
crazy.
we always joke that my brain is like a warehouse, but like a bomb went off, and there's a ton of stuff, but it takes a while to get to. And his brain is like a really small, organized closet. You can, There's not a lot in there, but you can get to it pretty quick.
Right.
So
Because he knows
great guy though.
Because you have to have. There have to be sort of like labels that you.
Yeah.
It's like why you can't remember a person's name. You have to kind of develop a system.
Yeah.
Like this person, I remember his name is Bill because he has that baseball cap on.
There's some scientific
something,
term
and
for
I
that.
don't do
Yeah.
that enough. but there are
Mnemonic
certain-
device, right?
Yeah, right.
Mnemonic
And thank you. But there are certain people whose names I just cannot.
So the Robin Williams thing,
Yeah.
why I think that's particularly interesting, as I said, is that because it was this burst, and that it still became the #1. So what does that say about us? Like when we all share this, like, in this case, a pretty horrific thing.
I
What
think
does
it's
that
a
say?
phenomenon.
Yeah,
No, I don't want to interrupt.
Well, I
Sorry.
mean, I think what you're saying is absolutely correct, though. It's like, and I did a couple of papers about this back in college, where the ability to access a lot of different things all at once sort of has created a divergent pattern for like our cultural experiences. So it's like because there's so many different kinds of artists that you can listen to from a music perspective, like you don't have to have a room where everybody knows what's going on. So when these moments happen, these MASH finale style moments,
Yeah.
where like everybody goes to the bathroom at the commercial break, so like the water table lowers.
Right,
Because they're
right.
all so involved in the show. Those kinds of things, when they happen, while it's unfortunate that he passed away, of course, it is sort of special that like all of us for like a moment are sort of, even if we are Googling, doing the same thing.
It's
at
like
once.
Yeah.
because we're in such an isolated
Yes.
society that we all kind of converged like this in a very
Yeah.
modern way.
Yeah.
But I also think that what that says is that to a lot of people, Robin Williams was an incredible source of joy.
Yeah.
And for him to die in that way
Right.
rocked so many people's worlds, I think.
Oh, that's interesting. So you think maybe even if he had died in another way, let's say it had just been a car accident, that it wouldn't have got the traction. So it really was so.
Well, I think it was
tied.
because to people who don't get the personality of the comic, which is a lot of people, the fact that he took his own life and suffered from depression, where to people he was like a savior. He was the light, and he didn't have the light.
Yeah.
I think that was a really tragic moment for people.
Absolutely. All right, so the last one that I want to touch on real quick, the Malaysian plane.
Yeah.
Everyone talked about it for that month. CNN did like 2 months of wall-to-wall, endless speculation, which was always prefaced by saying we're not going to speculate what happened, and then they'd speculate for 2 hours. We never found the plane. Which I think is kind of interesting. So they force this stuff down our throats. Who the hell knows what happened? It's a pretty sick story, actually, if you really think about it, that we never found this plane. But so we were force-fed it by the media for that amount of time. It never resolved itself, and now we never talk about it.
Right.
So what does that say about how we
just
ingest?
Moved on to the next thing that's being forced down our throats. I mean, if you've watched CNN for the past 4 weeks, it's all been protesting, been police violence like nonstop. They'll do a breaking news alert at the top of every hour, and it'll be literally the exact same thing over and over and over again. And I think that, CNN's model, and especially like with all the other sort of local, or not local, but national news organizations, to sort of like just think that like they can get behind a thing that's just going to get them traction and just push it until it's dead. Might work for casual viewers, for people like us, who watch a lot. Maybe it's really horrible.
And on that note, that's why I dig doing this on the internet, because if you don't like a topic, you just look at it and you don't have to click it.
Go shopping.
You go shopping, you watch porn, whatever else you do.
Watch porn.
But hopefully you at least click it and maybe
Not on your console.
Maybe watch the ad at the beginning of it. Not on the console. Don't watch the porn on the console. Anyway, I want to thank Cathy and Andy. Their Twitterers are right down below if you have any suggestions how Cathy can deal with her post-nasal drip.
Please.
Or if you want to talk to Andy about his feelings about cats.
Please do.
You can follow him right there. And thank you very much, and we'll do it again next week.